Hey everyone, I am in Lonsdale, Minnesota, and I'm visiting with Clifford Knuteson, who's a taxidermist. Clifford, how long have you been a taxidermist?
21 years.
What do you mount?
Game animals, birds, and fish.
So I understand, Clifford, that you reached out to me online. I'd done some videos trying to defend my deer farm with and educate people on what's really going on with CWD. And I did a few videos. You reached out to me pretty discouraged and disgruntled about what's going on with taxidermy laws in the state of Minnesota as well. I've had many people reach out to me, and I'm going to interview a few of them. You're the first guy on my list. So, what is it, the number one thing that's got you disgruntled and disappointed in trying to keep your business alive concerning taxidermy and CWD?
Mostly that hunters who go out of state, hunt mule deer and elk, they have to have the entire hide scun off the face to bring that into Minnesota legally.
So when you say entire hide scun off the face, that is caping out the animal,
Yes.
cutting around the eyes, the ears, the nose,
Yep.
properly so it can be sewn back together.
Yes.
And that needs to be done with skill.
That has to be done with skill, and the antlers have to have only the skull plate attached. So guess what? You want a European mount because you need room, and you get this great big elk, and you don't have the room, you don't have the money to get the whole shoulder mount, but you want the skull and the horns. Guess what? That has to be done out of state.
Okay, so these guys aren't bringing their money. They're hunting out of state, and their taxidermy work is staying in a different state. It's not coming home to Minnesota.
In a lot of cases, that's true.
So you're missing out on that work, and your business is suffering, and other taxidermists all across the state are feeling the crunch.
Yes, one guy I know is losing $10,000 a year that he knows of.
And you know what? That's probably not a lot of money to a person sitting in St. Paul creating laws. It's probably not a lot for wildlife biologists in the state of Minnesota. They don't probably care. But when you're trying to support your family and you're trying to buy food and diapers and clothing, and this is an industry that you got into, it's a big hit.
That's a very big hit.
Right. So what would be a solution for coming back and getting this so you can bring work, dollars, back into Minnesota? What would be a solution?
Well, the one we've been pushing for is a 72-hour window where the hunters could bring it directly to a taxidermist, licensed taxidermist, or a meat locker, where then we would be regulated on how we need to handle that potentially hazardous material. We don't know if it's
When a deer, an elk, or a moose or whatever comes into your taxidermy shop, you don't know that it has CW, but it just can't come here under the present laws. Period. Done. Can't come in. And it's causing a huge problem. So you'd like to see it come in, have a 72-hour window where you get that thing caped out, fleshed out, and then there are guidelines put in place for how you dispose of the remains.
That we would think would be a reasonable solution, yes.
So right now under the current law, if a person wants to hunt in Colorado and drive through Minnesota, heading to Wisconsin or Michigan, can they drive through Minnesota with an elk in the back of their pickup taken in Colorado?
If they're a non-resident, yes.
They can bring a whole carcass across the
They
state.
can bring a whole carcass.
Across the state?
Yes.
And leave the state?
Yes.
But if they want to bring a whole carcass to your shop, that's illegal?
Yes.
Okay.
That is true.
Okay. So you're saying they should be able to bring the animal in, you'd like to work with them, have 72 hours, you get it, you flesh it out, you notify the state, hey, I picked up an elk head from this township, this is the hunter, I have it, I've caped it out, I've fleshed it out, I've gotten the brainstem, I have everything in a bag, sealed up, triple bags, create some regulations. Now what do we do with this possibly clean animal from out of state or possibly hazardous? We don't know. Give us some rules that would allow us to stay in business. Is that correct?
That's what we're asking for, some common sense rules.
So you've reached out to the DNR in the past, and what type of response have you got?
Pretty much fallen on deaf ears. The whole reason that was explained to me by then Adam Murkowski back in 2016, why this law was put into place is because they know that people are dumping the remains out into the environment. That's what they're trying to prevent.
Okay, so they know people are dumping the remains on the environment, so therefore we're going to shut the door on business if business can't come into Minnesota, because they're convinced one bad egg is breaking the law. So they're punishing everybody.
Pretty much.
That's a third grade mentality. We don't do things that way. We allow people, good businessmen that are honest and upright and want to provide a good service, to maintain good business and follow rules. We don't punish everybody because of one bad apple. However, I did a data request, and I asked for a policy from the DNR on how they handle and deal with and guide their employees. What does a DNR employee do with a known infected CWD carcass? What do they do with it? And I don't get a policy back. I don't think they have a policy in place to deal with it. So all of a sudden they're telling you can't do it, but they can't account for what they've done with their carcasses that have been collected with CWD. I don't get anything back. They're not talking to me. Kind of sounds like a double standard.
It does, and not to mention, too, in print, they've actually admitted that this law they have on the books right now is going to be hard to enforce, and they rely on hunters and us to essentially be their informants.
Right. So anyway, the law is that if someone came to you with a carcass that wasn't handled properly, you're supposed to call in and report that guy and have him arrested.
That's my understanding, correct?
Will that be productive for your business?
No.
Are you an informant for the DNR?
No, I am not.
You're trying to do business and you'd like to work with the DNR and come up with a solution.
Yes,
You're licensed by the DNR?
I am.
You were at a meeting in South Dakota, and in South Dakota you met with a game warden. You have some papers here that you were showing me.
Yes.
And these paperwork that you were showing me, well, just give me the general concept of what happened at this meeting with the South Dakota DNR.
Well, I was at a competition, and they had a meeting there, and their state biologist, Chad was his name, Chad Switzer, came in and talked about CWD and the fact that they want to obviously prevent its spread, but wants to work with taxidermists as well to make sure they're not burdensome with regulations that are going to take business away from them. That was the gist I got out of the meeting. And they got certain surveys that they were collecting from people, and they had a whole bunch of information about what's going on in their state. And I specifically asked him if he could contact our DNR and maybe talk some sense into him.
Okay, so do you feel after attending this meeting in South Dakota that they were open to working with hunters and creating an avenue for taxidermists and hunters to stay in business and continue enjoying their sport?
That was my impression. He was working directly with the president of the Taxidermist Association out there.
A friendly relationship with the DNR.
That was my understanding, yes.
And an ear that would listen to suggestions.
Yeah.
And do you feel it's that way in Minnesota?
It's night and day, so no.
Totally different.
Totally different.
So that's too bad. And we're creating this video because you are fighting to keep taxidermy businesses alive and well in Minnesota and not just see them run out of business
That's correct.
with hostile legislation.
Yes.
Okay, I think we summed it up. Thank you.
Yep.